Welcome to Theory of Pets. I'm a passionate pet owner with a drive to help others like me uncover the truth about the pet industry and what goes on behind the scenes. Welcome back for another episode of Theory of Pets. This has been kind of a crazy time, not just for me, but for everybody with the pandemic that's going on. So my podcasts have been more sporadic. I've also have more downtime than I usually have, which is kind of nice. I think a lot of us are finding that, taking life a little bit slower hasn't been a bad thing. It's sort of the silver lining to this COVID cloud. One of the things that I have been doing is catching up on some of the shows and movies that I've been wanting to watch, as I think, again, a lot of people are doing. One of the movies on my list is called The Dog Doc, and it's a movie that's about a doctor, a veterinarian, Dr. Marty Goldstein, and his colleagues that work out of South Salem, New York. They have basically created a mecca for holistic care, and they are becoming more and more well-known, not just in the area, but around the country for their efforts of combining conventional medical training with cutting-edge alternative therapies. I think this is something that it is becoming more popular for pet parents. I know that a lot of more people are asking me about different alternative therapies, and I think that's definitely a growing trend. It sort of started in the human industry. We're looking for alternative therapies for ourselves and our human family members, and now it's sort of leaching over into the pet industry as well. We're starting to see some of the really negative side effects of pharmaceuticals, prescription medication, some really big drawbacks to having some major surgeries, things like that. And I think people are certainly now more than ever looking towards alternative remedies. So Dr. Marty has, as I said, formed this practice where they combined conventional medicine when that's needed, also with cutting edge alternative therapies. So it's really amazing learning about what he does and the impact that it's having not only on his animal patients, but their humans as well. It's a very interesting documentary, The Dog Doc. I don't want to give too much away because I do think that it's important, an important film that everybody should watch, not just if you're a pet owner. So, I don't want to give a lot away. I want you guys to check it out for sure. But it poses a really serious question and sort of makes you look at your healthcare plan, the healthcare plan you have for your family, including your furry family members. It is called The Dog Doc. It does focus on a veterinary practice, but it really makes us stop and think and look at, the medications that we're taking. Are we over-medicating? Are we over-medicating ourselves, our children, our pets? While also painting this really nice picture of what this veterinary team does and how they're really opening the eyes of the humans that they work with to holistic treatments. And of course, it follows some of their animal patients, and you get to see these really amazing transformations for these animals that they treat. And animals that really, the pet owners didn't have any other options. And there was no guarantee that, their pets were going to get healthy again. So watching that, it's a very heart-wrenching film in some aspects, but it's also just a really uplifting and inspiring film as well because of the amazing things that they're doing and, the things that are out there and available to us now. And I think a lot of us really sort of lean on that traditional medicine because that's what we've been doing. That's what our families have done. That's what's been quote unquote working. And I use that word very loosely, but that's what's been we've seen to be working for, quite a while. So taking a step back and looking at a more holistic approach and using some alternative medicines, it's frowned upon by some experts. A lot of, people may be worried about what others are going to think about them if they look into these other alternative medicines. But there's so much to it, and it's really an educational opportunity, I think, watching this documentary for, like I said, anybody. If you're a pet owner, you're certainly, I think, going to relate to that aspect of it. But even if you've never owned a pet before in your life, you're going to enjoy this film. In this week's episode, I spoke with Cindy Meehl. She is actually an award-winning director and producer who worked on the Dog Doc, which premiered. It actually premiered in 2019 at the Tribeca Film Festival and was released to the public in the spring of 2020. So she's had a really interesting career, and I wanted to talk to her about what inspired her to work on this particular documentary. And she also talks about another project that she's working on right now that I think you guys will love too. But I really wanted to learn more about, what made her want to create this film, what she learned about Dr. Marty going through this and his practice. So I spoke with her. It was a great conversation, and this is your chance to listen to that. If you're wondering about streaming the film, there are actually multiple ways that you can watch it. It is available on DVD now. There is DVD was available back in October. You can stream it on the web. You can also watch it on Amazon Prime Video, Apple TV, iTunes, Spectrum. There are lots of ways that you can watch it. If you click the link below this podcast, it'll take you to the Dog Doc website, which is dogdocthefilm.com, and you can watch it there. And get all the links to different places where you can watch it or purchase the DVD, obviously, if you'd like to do that. You guys can listen to my conversation with Cindy and learn more about the film itself and her process and place in making the film. Cindy, why don't you get us started by talking a little bit about yourself, your background, and it's actually a pretty interesting story how you got started in the film industry to begin with. I'm sure that our listeners would love to hear that.
It is. I always call myself the accidental filmmaker because, I spent years in New York as a fashion designer, and, I've had different careers, I guess, over the years, but I had met Buck Brannaman, and I was really fascinated with what he did with horses, and it really changed my entire perception of horses and of animals and the way you communicate to them. So there was just something that struck me when I was at one of his clinics, and I thought they were talking about making a fictional movie about him. And I thought, well, it's sad that no one would see this person. So I asked him if I could make a documentary about him, not having any clue how to make a documentary, but I don't know. He said yes, and then I just moved on from there and hired good people to work with me, and it worked out. That film was Buck, and then from then on, I just kept making movies because I found it a really powerful way to tell a story and to expose people to things that maybe they weren't aware of.
Absolutely. And I think especially, in this day and age, everything is what you can watch. If people aren't reading as much as they used to. So it's all, if they can watch it, they're definitely more apt to get it and to get the information.
That is true. And ironically, I am married to a writer. So we're always laughing about that fact that he writes books and I make movies. And it's a lot easier to get people to watch a movie than to read a book.
That is ironic. That's too funny. So you've made, as you mentioned, multiple documentaries and multiple documentaries about animals even. What inspires you to get involved with the types of projects that you choose?
It has to really, well, I feel like I came into making movies at a later age. I mean, I was almost 50 when I started Buck. So I feel like I come to ideas and new thoughts and information in a way of maybe a little more wisdom and just things that really move me and that surprise me, because I've been well traveled and had a really good life, but I find that when something really strikes me as, oh my God, why don't more people know this, or this is an amazing story and it has such a heart to it, that when I feel that way about something, and it's not often that happens, then I do feel compelled to get involved and make a film about it, or help make a film about it. I didn't direct all these films. I basically came in and helped produce a lot of them.
What a great job. That's awesome that you just find things that inspire you that you want to share with others and make a movie about them.
Well, and I do have a huge passion for animals, so I think the majority of these films have to do with animals in some capacity. Um, I feel like as growing up, I really related more to animals, I think, than people, and just found great comfort around animals. And I think a lot of people also understand that. I think they feel that way too, especially horses and dogs.
Yeah, I obviously I would have to agree in my line of work,
Yeah.
for sure. And that's actually what brought me to watch the dog doc. So tell us a little bit about the film and why it's so special to you.
Well, I've known Marty Goldstein and the Smith Ridge Veterinary Clinic for almost 30 years now. And so over the years, I've always been prone to think less is more, try to do things in a more natural way. I found great success with that. I found great health with that method. And so I had a Shar that was dying at 6 years old. And this is almost 30 years ago. Somebody told me, and I really didn't think she was going to make it through the week. And they said, you should go see Marty Goldstein. And I was able to get an appointment. They rushed me in. They were extremely nice at the clinic. And they got me in. And he changed, I mean, right then and there, he changed my entire philosophy about animal health. I kind of knew it for people. I mean, I had been leaning that way, but the way he was saying, he said, you've had this dog on steroids and antibiotics for years, honestly, off and on her whole life. She was on antibiotics or steroids because she had a Shar-Pei syndrome where they would spike really high fevers. And so he said, she's trying to get something out of her body and you keep suppressing it with these drugs, which just rang as common sense. So we did what he said. I mean, within a month, between homeopathics and some supplements, this dog transformed into a puppy, from a dying dog, I mean, literally on death's door, to a puppy. And so I was sold from then on, and I took all my dogs to him, and I practiced, this method of just really good, healthy food and a natural lifestyle and not over vaccinating them, which is something that a lot of vets, they just truly do give too many vaccines to dogs. They don't need 7 vaccines a year. So, and people want to do the best thing for their animals, but in essence, sometimes they're doing some of the worst things for them.
And I think that's, one of the biggest things that I took out of watching the film is that, so many pet owners, they do think that they're doing the best for their dog. And of course, that's what we all want to do. But, I think it will open a lot of people's eyes and surprise them that the things that, even the things they're being told by experts in the industry aren't necessarily the best choices for your pets.
Yeah, I totally think that you're right. And I always found it heartbreaking. Like, I'd see my friends and their dog would have some serious allergy they had had for years. And so I would often send them to this clinic and they would come back the same as I had been. They would come back with like, oh my gosh, why wouldn't I do that? I do that for myself, but I never thought about doing it for my pet. Or, this philosophy of thinking it just opened up a whole new world. And all of a sudden they had a dog that was shiny and active and playing in a way that they hadn't played in years, which is like that Shar-Pei that I had. She transformed back to being a puppy. And it was nothing short of a miracle, but it wasn't really a miracle. It was just sound advice and good nutrition and good medical practice.
Absolutely. And it's, I mean, like you said, sometimes when you actually think of it, it's like, oh my gosh, that's just common sense. And it's, things that we know for humans to be certainly true. So it's just kind of silly that, we don't think of that way for our pets. But hopefully, films like yours, and I think more pet parents are becoming educated now. So hopefully, we're going in the right direction.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's like I tell people, if every day you ate Ritz crackers or some granola and that's all you ate, you have to think sooner or later, even if it was a decent quality granola, you might start to feel kind of bad. You're not getting, the whole, every nutrient, all the things that you really need. You're not getting diversity. And I think that you can't expect a dog to eat the exact same thing or kibble every day and be healthy with that. And I'm not trying to food shame anybody. I'm just saying that common sense does come into play. That real food does make a difference with an animal. They're a living being. Their bodies are not that far off from the way ours operate.
Absolutely. And when you work on a project like this, not just the dog doc, but the other documentaries, I think specifically, you really get to know the people and the animals that you work with. You must become personally invested in them. Are you still in contact with some of the people that you've worked with? Do you follow up with the animals that you work with?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I do. And it was heart-wrenching, honestly, to film this because, you have animals, what it feels like to take your dog and drop them off for surgery or to, when there's something really serious with your pet, it's like a child. You're very emotionally involved. And being such an animal lover, I would get emotionally involved and I would see their pain. I would see the animals and just be really rooting for them. And it's hard not to get emotionally involved with any film you do. You have to still be documenting it and you can't take that too far, but there's still humanity on the other side. So like there has to be compassion and trust, or none of these people would be letting us film them. So trust is a huge thing in making a documentary.
And I think it comes across nicely in the film without being kind of biased or one-sided. That's one of the things that I really enjoyed about the documentary is that you can definitely see the emotion, and it's a little bit heart-wrenching to watch at times too. Obviously, I'm a pet lover, and from firsthand experience, like you said, dropping my pets off at the vet, I know those feelings. So sometimes it was kind of tough to watch in certain parts too.
Definitely. I mean, I've had people say they cried all the way through it. Some people are saying I'm laughing and crying all the way through it, but they said the same thing about Buck, and I don't think it's because it's sad all the way through. I don't want to give people the wrong impression. It's not that it's a sad movie. It's just that it brings up those emotions of when your pet was sick or when you did have to drop them off at the vet. And I know so many times I walked out the front door after leaving my own pet there and in tears because they were in good hands and that it was maybe a minor thing that was happening, but that these are animals that don't really understand what's happening and that you've just left them and you're their person. That feeling is it's like, oh my God.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And, I think watching this, like all I could think of is I wish everybody could have a veterinarian like Marty. And I know you said that you've known him for quite a long time. He's certainly a very special person. So maybe without giving away too many details, can you tell our listeners what they'll learn about Marty and his passion by watching the film?
Well, Marty is, I was lucky enough to just because I live in Connecticut and his clinic is in South Salem, New York. And someone had said, go see him. Like I would have never known he existed probably except for that kind person in the pet store. I hear your pet. And they said, go see him. And then I realized, after knowing him for years and And we became friends, over the years, just because I have a lot of dogs, or I've had dogs through the years. And he is really one of the founding fathers of integrative medicine with pets. And I so believe in the message that he is promoting and his clinic is promoting. And going back to, it's just common sense, but we would have long discussions about things and cases. He would tell me about people and different pets and things that had happened. And I constantly would think, oh, I just wish everyone could know this. And certainly all of the veterinarians at this clinic are just remarkable and so compassionate, so smart. And they do think out of the box a little bit. It's not like this drug is for this condition. They take every dog as an individual, because just like people, sometimes something works better than another medication or supplement for us. It's the same with animals. And they are just remarkably smart and open, and that's why everyone would come there. This is what is probably the most unusual thing, is people would come from all over the country to this clinic because they had gone down the traditional path. They had tried all the drugs and things just weren't working. Their dog wasn't better. And then they would hear about this clinic, and then they would bring their animal there, and sometimes with such remarkable transformations. And I had witnessed this through the years. And that's really why I wanted to make this film. I wanted to open people's eyes to think, wait a minute, we've been going to the same vet. Maybe nothing's happening. Maybe you should think about it differently and change things.
Absolutely. And we obviously, the documentary focuses on Marty's practice, and that's what we've been talking about. But there are holistic veterinarians and veterinarians that work like him around the country. So I think that was, for me, why it was so important to have you on and to share this with our audience, because whether you're in that local area or not, I think it is eye-opening. I had mentioned that earlier, and hopefully it gets people thinking about what their dog is going through, and some of the things or the discussions they've had with their vet, and maybe seek a second opinion or an alternate option for their dog, and look at things in a different way. So, we're talking about Marty, but that doesn't mean that if you don't live in the area that there's not options out there for you as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and honestly, I don't recommend people flying their dog across the country to the vet, because if you go to the AHVMA, which stands for the American Holistic Veterinary Medical Association, is AHVMA. They will tell you, you can go to that website, which is integrative practitioners, and you can put in your area and find somebody in your area, or interview vets. People shouldn't just settle for something because it's next door. Honestly, to me, my pet's longevity is so important, and I want them to feel good. I know when they feel bad, and I know when they're happy because they're playing and being crazy. And so you want them to feel good, and you want to give them the best care possible. So I can't stress enough what a difference it could make. Don't ever settle for a dog that's just kind of sitting around and smells and has a bad coat, or what I mean.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's not their fault.
you hit the nail on the head when you said, a lot of people do go to a vet in their local area, and if you live in a more urban area, you may have lots of choices. I live in rural Maine. If there's one vet around here, and if you want to find a different one, you do need to drive. And I think, that's something to definitely think about before you adopt a pet, or, if you have dogs and you're not really satisfied with the care that your vet's giving you, just because they're close doesn't mean you can't look around for different options.
Exactly. And you can call places, and even Smith Ridge, you can call and get a consultation with a vet. And I've known many cases where the veterinarians will work with your vet on a protocol. The vitamin C therapy is a really big thing at Smith Ridge. And to the point that, I saw such miracles with the vitamin C drips that I started getting them myself. I called up my doctor and I said, vitamin C drips. And they went, oh, yeah. So I started doing it. And I have to say, I mean, they have all these studies on the vitamin C drips. And even with coronavirus, there's 2 new studies about, these high doses of IV vitamin C, like after just 3 doses of it, they've turned it around. I mean, seriously documented studies on IVC. It's a kind of a miracle vitamin, but putting it in your vein is different than putting it in your mouth. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. And, that kind of leads me into my next question for you. We've talked a lot about pets and pet owners and how people with animals would be interested in this documentary. But, it's not, it focuses on animal health, but that's not all it's about. There's a lot in here and kind of an underlying message about human health as well. So will people who don't own pets, maybe somebody who's never owned a pet, still enjoy watching this film?
Well, I would certainly hope so, but absolutely that was my intention. Is I'm talking about animals, but if you don't see yourself in that same scenario, then I have failed, I think. Because I don't think there's a lot of difference when it comes to health. I think that the basic practices are good across the board, whether it's a parrot or a dog, a cat, a human being, a horse. You got to feed them well, and you got to balance. You do blood work, and that's one of the things this clinic, they do it from blood work. They don't guess. They don't say, oh, I think this dog needs a thyroid supplement. They take the blood, and then they see, based on the blood work, what you need. And that's what I do yearly. I do a blood workup, and then the doctor looks at it and it's like, well, your vitamin D is low, or your vitamin C can be low, which I was shocked mine was. So you want to go from blood. You don't want to just go by Google, oh, this is a good vitamin. You want to really do this scientifically. But it's remarkable to see the difference in people and animals.
And I think this film, like I said, it definitely, obviously it's called The Dog Doc. It focuses on veterinary medicine and animal health, but there is just that nice, correlation, and you bring that together really well in this. So I really think anybody would enjoy the film. And I know that we're pretty much talking about pets and pet owners, but if you happen to be listening to the podcast and you don't own a dog, and you never owned a pet in your life, I still think, you would enjoy the film. And that was something that really stood out to me about it was, quite often when I have people, because of the nature of my podcast, when I have people on talking about books or films, they're really geared towards pet owners or, people that have been pet owners, or want to be pet owners. But I mean, this film really, I think, is a great watch for anybody. So kudos to you on that. I think you did really, really well bringing that all together.
Thank you. I mean, that was something I learned from making Buck, is that we had, Buck is about horses and this horse whisperer guy, but we had more people, whether it was a therapist, a teacher, people from all walks of life would write to us, and, people in prison wardens, and saying how they had showed it at the prison and how it was so much about people, that in a way the horse was a metaphor for people. And I really loved that fact. So I really wanted the same type thing to come across with the dog doc, because even though we're talking about dogs, the message is just as strong for people as about dogs.
Absolutely. And I just think that's so wonderful. I think, a lot of us, if you did a documentary on human health, I mean, there's plenty of them out there. But I don't think people really take an interest in those the way that we do things about pets or our animals, which is kind of silly because you think, your health would be just as important as your dog's. But when you see a documentary about a pet or a movie about a pet related, people just sort of seem to gravitate towards those more. So I liked that, how you sort of used the main focus, but also kind of brought in that underlying tone that, hey, you could be healthier too, and this could definitely work for humans as well.
Yeah. Well, and And dogs are just so much more fun to watch than people, right?
So true, right?
Love being
Absolutely.
there.
Absolutely. So you've talked a little bit about Buck, and we will link to your website. And I should have mentioned a minute ago when you mentioned the American Holistic Veterinary Association that we will link to their website as well. So anybody that wants to check that out can find the link below the podcast. But do you have any other upcoming projects that you can tell us about?
Well, we actually have another film out right now called Rewind, which has done amazingly well, and it's actually about the generational child sexual abuse, and that immediately puts people like, oh, I could never watch it, but it is 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it has gotten the most amazing critical reviews because it's a very watchable film on the subject, and it really helps people understand. Like it's amazing what the critics have said about it, and the people comment on it. It's been a hugely powerful film, and so we're really proud of that. And we're working with some people consulting right now on some other projects, but they're really early on, so I'm not going to get into the weeds on those. But we are definitely always working on something.
Good for you.
And this year my daughter's getting married, so I have to say I'm kind of taking it as a light year, so I can.
Yeah. Oh wow! Well, congratulations. That's exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, that's great. I will definitely check out your new documentary, and that's great for you guys to take on such a hard hitting topic, and like you said, kind of make it watchable. I know, like you said, when you first approached the topic, a lot of people would say, "Oh, I can't watch that. I don't like that." But that's great to take such a serious issue that I think really needs to be out there and have a light shined on it, and do it in a way that people can watch it and educate themselves and learn more about it. So fantastic. That's great.
No, we're excited about it. It's a survivor story, and it's a very uplifting story. So I think that's what's made it so popular.
And I know the dog doc, you can watch it on Amazon if you have Amazon Prime Video right now. Where else could people find it if they want to check it out?
Well, if you go to dogdocthefilm.com, it lists all the platforms. We have a DVD out as well if you want to give it as a gift or just have it to keep, so you can watch it anytime you want. But it's Amazon Prime and iTunes, and it was in theaters virtually for a long time. I don't know that it's in theaters anymore. I think most of the theater run has stopped. But just go to the dogdocthefilm.com.
And we'll link to that below the podcast too, so people can check it out, and it'll be right there easily. Is there anything else that we didn't talk about that you wanted to discuss before we stop recording?
Oh my goodness. I think that this year has been, well, last year and already this year has been so remarkably bizarre and stressful and unusual. And I think that more than ever, I'm seeing people that didn't even like dogs suddenly want a dog and bring one into their home. So I feel like that animals, the power of animals and how much they add to your life is becoming more and more apparent, especially in this time where you need something that's just happy and has unconditional love all the time.
Absolutely.
Because that's right? Yeah. So I think that it's just important that we take care of these special beings. They are little angels.
Oh, I agree. And if you're listening and you don't have a dog or a cat, you've never had a pet, you won't understand it until you have one. But it is just amazing how much they bring to your life. I've rescued dogs for a long time. We currently, as crazy as this sounds, we have 3 rescue dogs and 6 rescue cats at our house. So our house is always full, and it sounds crazy, but I wouldn't know what to do without them. It's just amazing how much they bring to your life.
Don't they? I mean, you're right. People don't understand unless they have them, but it's pure joy.
It really is. It really is.
Uh, well, you must have a very lovely household, Samantha.
Oh, I refer to it as organized chaos. It's a little crazy at times, but we make it work. Everybody gets along for the most part. And, I always say we're at maximum capacity, but sometimes we just get a phone call, and the goal is always to rehabilitate and rehome. But, sometimes they just fit in with the pack. And here we are, 3 dogs and 6 cats later.
There you go. And
Yeah.
that pack is so important. I find that if you're consistent and you take care of your animals and you are the leader, it's amazing how they just all fall in line. They just become such a nice organized pack in your home.
It's true. We have people that come over, and when you say 6 cats and 3 dogs, they think, "Oh my goodness, you must live in a zoo." And then they come to our house, and it's like, "Wow, you don't even notice. Like, everybody's so well behaved." And I'm fortunate enough that I get to stay home and work with everybody and spend the time. And yeah, rescue animals are different too than I feel like than animals you get from when they're babies. They just kind of grow up, and they have that sense of entitlement, and they just sort of expect you to always be there to take care of them. But rescue animals, there's always this, I don't know, kind of appreciation that they have that other animals don't. So all of our animals thankfully are well loved and well cared for and get along great.
That is so true. I was going to say they're just grateful. All mine are rescues, and there's something about them. They're just grateful. They know.
It really is. And people have asked me that before, and I say that the only way I can compare it is to think about a person who's always been raised having enough food, enough attention, a shelter, warmth. They don't know what it's like. They can listen to it and try to be compassionate about it, but you don't really know it till you live it. And so there's just something different about a rescue animal. They've had that experience, and it's just an appreciation that the other animals don't have. So we're very grateful that we are fortunate enough to be able to take in animals when they come our way. And like I said, the goal is always to rehome, but it just doesn't always work out that way.
Well, I'm looking for another one too, Samantha. If you come across that special dog that wants to live on a farm,
oh, what a great life too! Yeah,
it is a great life for a dog. They get lots of exercise. But my husband said, not while you're making a film. So I figure while I'm just doing a wedding, I could sneak in another dog. Right?
Well, good luck to you with that. Hopefully that will work out. And I'm sure you will find somebody that fits in well on the farm.
Oh, I will. I look forward to it. But anyway, they're just the best. And thank you so much for letting me come on and blabber on about animals. It's my favorite subject.
I tell everybody I just have the greatest job in the world. I get to talk about animals all the time, write about animals, make videos about animals, and it just couldn't be better. So I'm thrilled that you were here, and that you have the same type of awesome job that I do, that you get to do what you love every day and enjoy it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you.
And again, thank you so much to Cindy for being a guest on the podcast. It was so great to talk to her. And again, if you want to check out the film, The Dog Doc, you can go to their website. It's dogdocthefilm.com. There is a link below the podcast if you want to check that out, with all the places that you can stream it, or how to buy the DVD if you're looking for that. There's also links if you just go below the podcast. You can check out more information about Dr. Marty Goldstein and holistic veterinary practices, as well as different alternative therapies that might be available if you're just looking to learn more about that. If you guys are listening, if you've subscribed on YouTube or iTunes or Google Play Store, however you're listening, if you could take just a second and leave me a review or like the podcast, that really helps me when I'm reaching out to experts in this industry to show them that you guys are out there listening, that you're enjoying the podcast, and that you want to hear more. So again, thank you, Cindy, for being on the podcast today. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I will be back with another hot topic very soon.